everyone, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Nicholson. I'm your host, and on this show we're going to be breaking down all of the day's movie news and kind of giving a little bit of background into what it all means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, and things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get into today's topics. And the first topic we have to talk about today is involving Marvel's Phase 3 and kind of what's all going to culminate with that. So, the first thing that we know about Phase 3 is the fact that Ant-Man is going to lead it off in July of 2015. Outside of that, and the fact that it will end with Avengers 3. Outside of that, we don't really know anything concrete. Now, Marvel has optioned Thor 3 and Captain America 3 to be created. Now, we don't know exactly if they're going to be part of Phase 3 or not, especially with Chris Evans now coming out and stating that after Avengers 2, that's his contract's up, essentially. He no longer is obligated to appear in any more Marvel movies as Captain America. Now, they can do what they did with Robert Downey Jr. and re-sign him for a few more films, but if this is the case, then we may see Captain America 3 be pushed to Phase 4. Or even maybe further down the line. Now, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, from what I'm hearing, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, is apparently very good. So I can see Marvel really wanting to strike fire while it's hot and try to recapture the flame that they got with this new one. But other things that we know about it are the fact that supposedly Thor 3 and Captain America 3 are supposed to be involved in Phase 3 in some capacity. They've already confirmed the writers from Thor 2 are coming back to write Thor 3. The writers and the writing team and the directing team for Captain America Winter Soldier are coming back to do Captain America 3. So they're trying to keep as much of those storylines, even though all the films are connected, they're really trying to make sure that all of their own solo films are actually connected as well. So having the same team working on 1, 2, and 3, because the writers from number 1 came back and wrote the first draft of number 2, and I believe that was rewritten, and now they're going on to write number 3. But the main thing about this is that there's one spot still remaining. So we have Ant-Man confirmed for 2015. 2016 most likely will be Captain America 3 and Thor 3 unless something else changes. But the last spot that's left open, many people are assuming, and even Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel film productions, has come out and stated that they really have an aspiration of doing this, which is Doctor Strange. And so Doctor Strange is a really interesting feature only because it's very unique and very different from anything else that Marvel has done, especially considering the pedigree of people that they're looking at getting to direct. And that's where today's story comes in, because they've actually according to online sources, this isn't confirmed by Marvel or anything of that sort, but they've narrowed down their top list of directors down to 3 names. And the 3 names are Jonathan Levine, who directed the movie 50-50 with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and also directed last year's Warm Bodies, the zombie retelling of Romeo and Juliet, which I actually thought was quite good. If you watch it, it's quite funny. Rob Corddry's in it, as anyone would know from Harold and Kumar Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, and he's been in a few other things. He guest starred on Community a couple of times, but very funny movie. A lot of heart, ironically, considering it was about zombies, but I felt that he did a really good job with it. One of the other names on the list is Mark Andrews. Now, he directed Brave, which I wasn't particularly a fan of. Now, I also wasn't the demographic of that movie, but I didn't feel that the movie itself was very good. I mean, it did win the Oscar, but I believe that was more political than anything because it was a Pixar film. It was the only Pixar film of that year, so they felt that to nominate it, and most people liked that. It also wasn't a very strong year. I was just surprised, though, that it did win over Wreck-It Ralph, which I felt Wreck-It Ralph should have definitely won. But the last name, and the one who's apparently the front runner, is a man named Scott Derrickson. Now, Scott Derrickson is mostly known as a horror director. He's directed the movie Sinister that came out just either last year or the year before. He's got a new movie coming out called Deliver Us from Evil, and he also directed the remake starring Keanu Reeves of The Day the Earth Stood Still. So he's got a little bit of knowledge dealing with high special effects and big budget movies. So he's currently the one that the studio is looking at the most for the role of the director. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually go this route, because if they do, this marks a very big shift in tone from all the other Marvel movies. If they're going with more of a horror director, now he may have had a pitch for this movie that's completely separate from any of his other work. I mean, look at Mark Webb. Mark Webb directed 500 Days of Summer, and the next movie he went on to direct was The Amazing Spider-Man. So they can change their styles when it suits a specific film. But if they're looking for these types of guys, and a lot of them do have either very, very big fantastical backgrounds, or they have kind of horror, supernatural elements in their background of film. So If I was to choose between all of these three right now, I would go with Derrickson only because he's shown his pedigree in his films. He's shown that he is growing as an artist and as a director. So I think that he would have the most room to work with when it came to the movie. He would have a lot of unique ideas that could really serve the story. But also, I feel that out of the other guys who are working on it, I mean, Mark Andrews, the only one that he's really known for is an animated film, which to me at least is a completely different medium because you're dealing with everything that you create on a page. Same with a fully CGI film. That to me is a little bit different than actually doing live action and having to integrate live action with the special effects. So my choice would have to be Scott Derrickson just because of his work, but a close second would have been Jonathan Levine because, again, I thought 50-50 was a great movie. And Warm Bodies really surprised me because I thought it was just going to be kind of a dumb, silly comedy. And it was a lot more than that. It was a lot more heart, a lot more character development than I thought would see. And it was a really good twist on the zombie genre, which has kind of gotten a little stale as of late. So hopefully we'll hear some more information about this. I have a feeling this is all going to be announced at Comic-Con, that Phase 3 is this movie, this movie, this movie, this movie. This is the director and writers, and this is the cast, and all that jazz. And so I have a feeling that we're going to hear a lot more about this at Comic-Con, and they'll probably come out with the official announcement then. So got a few months to wait, so let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is kind of connected to the last one. As I mentioned earlier, Captain America the Winter Soldier last night just had its world premiere for press, and a lot of people came out. They're under embargo right now, so that they can't write reviews. They can't release their reviews online, but they're allowed to tweet about it. They're allowed to tweet about their reactions and talk about their reactions to the film. One person in general, Steve Weintraub, also known as Frosty from the website Collider, he tweeted out that the Captain America sequel blew me away. Movie has a fantastic script, amazing action, and great character moments. Just about perfect. And many other online critics are praising this movie to be possibly the best Marvel movie to date, even surpassing the Avengers. So I knew after seeing the first trailer and after seeing the type of promotion that they're running with this movie that it was going to be good. When the Russo brothers came in, the guys who actually do Community, which is, that's again a really nice juxtaposition of talent. The guys who do this great comedy show, but it's a genre show. Anyone who's watched it knows that they have episodes that deal with horror. They have episodes in a comedic way, but they deal with horror, they deal with action, they deal with all of these different elements in this really small scale show. So these guys really do know how to tell a tight-knit story with these elements. And the fact that a couple of months ago they announced that these guys were going to be coming back and directing the third one, that right there meant that they had confidence in these guys. They wouldn't say that these guys are coming back unless they felt that they had really struck gold with this sequel. And from what I've been hearing online, I cannot wait for this movie. This movie looks phenomenal. Just looking at the action, it's based around a 70s political thriller. That's the feel that the directors were going for. So it's really got that kind of espionage aspect to it, which is going to be really cool. And the main through line throughout the movie, from what I understand, is Steve Rogers trying to cope with who is actually on the wrong side and who's on the right side. There's no more black and white. It's all kind of gray, and trying to figure out where everything lies within that. So I'm really intrigued to see this movie. I think the character development is going to be unbelievable. This is going to be, with the exception of Avengers, this is going to be one of the last times we're going to see Black Widow for a while, because Scarlett Johansson is now pregnant. So with her co-leading the movie and then also bringing in Falcon, this is kind of a mini Avengers movie, and it also ties directly into Avengers Age of Ultron. Guardians of the Galaxy is... They've labeled it almost like a one and done, when it's not really that. It will connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's not. They're not going to tie directly into Avengers: Age of Ultron. That is Captain America's job, and the things that happen in this movie will directly impact Age of Ultron. So we're really going to get a taste of what's to come with the next Avengers movie when we see Captain America, which will open up on April 4th. But as of right now, from what I've been hearing from a lot of people who I trust their opinions, I really do. They're not just standard critics who say that the cinematography was great in this area, or I really loved the lighting in this area. No, these are film fans. These are the people who look for the types of action sequences, the character development, but they're not necessarily required to have the character development. It's just when you see that on top of everything else and seeing the quality that you've seen from all the other movies, it really boasts well. And them saying that this could potentially be the best film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe up to date, that really has me excited. So I'm very interested to see this movie. Cannot wait for it to come out. And Hopefully, we're going to see some of the actual full-fledged reviews before the movie comes out. But if not, we only have about 3.5, 4 weeks to wait. So not that much time left. But I'm really eager to see this movie. That and Guardians of the Galaxy. I love what Marvel's been doing with their strategy so far, and I hope they continue it. And we know that they have a target of 2021 so far that they've already reached for what movies they would like to come out. Now, again, those could be adjusted. They might swap a movie out here and there to make room for someone's schedule or someone's contract or whatever the case may be. But we do know that they have plans all the way up to 2021. So we got enough Marvel movies coming in the next 7 years to hold us off. So with that in mind, I hope that the Captain America is as good as people are saying. I don't see why it wouldn't. Everybody is just raving about it. It's getting extraordinarily good reviews. So I'm very excited to see this movie. So let's move on to the next piece of information. The next piece today is dealing with the remake or reboot of Fletch. Now, anyone who's not familiar with Fletch, it was a movie series in the 80s that starred Chevy Chase as the character. He's a private investigator who, as the tagline stated, that he wears more disguises than he does actual work. So he's always known for putting on a weird disguise and really kind of being the private detective, but a comedic kind of action comedic version of that, more so on the comedy side. Now, this movie's been trying to be made for well over 10, 12, 13 years. I remember when I first started reading about movies, just when I was just a little kid, I was hearing about Fletch 1 and them trying to remake Fletch 1. And at one point, Kevin Smith was actually signed on to direct and write the movie, and he was actually going to have Jason Lee, who was his good friend and star of Mallrats, and he cameoed in, well, he was in Chasing Amy, and he cameoed in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. He was going to have him play Fletch, and I thought that was a really great role at the time. However, as far as I remember, the Weinstein brothers, who were in control of that franchise, didn't think that that Jason Lee was going to be a formidable star, that a lot of people were actually going to be drawn to him, and that the movie would be a huge success. So it ended up being put back into development and went into what's known as development hell, where the movies basically just said, okay, yeah, we're going to try to do this, and then they just never go anywhere. So that movie was stuck in there for a long time, but now it looks like it's got a bit of a resurgence as Jason Sudeikis, or Sudeikis, sorry, who from Horrible Bosses and from We're the Millers, has been cast as Fletch in the reboot, or as they're calling it right now, a prequel. And I don't really know how they're going to do the prequel aspect, because that would mean that they have to have the movie set in the 70s. Unless they mean that based on the original stories that were told, this is going to be a movie that is set before then and kind of showing how he became who he was, and then leading into the books and novels that the original movies were based off of. But they did come out and say that the character himself was going to be more based off of the novelization than it was going to be from the actual movies, from Chevy Chase's versions. So, and they also did say it's going to be more of an action comedy. Which really has me intrigued, because I've been hoping for Jason Sudeikis to actually get involved more in those roles, especially from We're the Millers. Anyone who's seen We're the Millers knows that it's absolutely hilarious, and he has the perfect timing for this type of comedy. He really would be great to, even in a movie, play Chevy Chase's son, or to have some sort of familial representation from them together. I think that they would play really well off of one another. But him being a really good replacement really definitely does go very far in boasting this movie to not only being made, but actually being good. They've been trying to get this movie made for a long time. Like, again, they were almost going to make it, I believe, 10 years ago. I think back in 2004, they were going to start filming. And then that got put on the shelf. So then Kevin Smith went and made Zack and Miri Make a Porno. That was the one that he wanted to really make at the time, but he was really trying to get this movie made. It got canned, so he went and did that. So this movie now being made, again, they came out and said that, yep, Jason Lee looks like he's the front runner to play, and we got Kevin Smith directing it, and then it got shelved. So there's no telling as to whether or not this movie's actually going to fully go ahead, and I'm not going to really hold my breath until filming actually starts, because that means that the movie is going to happen. When they look at Batman vs. Superman, 2 months before it was going to start filming, they pushed it a year. Now, that's such a big property that they would never can it, but the other movies have had that happen, especially right around the writer's strike. When the writer's strike was happening, there were a lot of movies. There was one called Pinkland that was going to be Oliver Stone movie with Channing Tatum, and who else was going to? I think Bruce Willis was going to be in it, and there were a few others, and it was going to be about Vietnam and another Oliver Stone movie in Vietnam, and that's where he's really excelled as a director. And that was a movie that unfortunately just got canceled Pinkville. That was what it was called, not Pinkland, Pinkville. And and that was going to be a really interesting look at kind of almost like a remake of Platoon, but more modern. Very similar aspects to Platoon, but that would have been his wheelhouse, and that would have been a really great film. But unfortunately, that was one of the casualties of that, as was something like this, where you just have all these movies that could potentially come out, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the rug gets pulled out from underneath them. So, no telling as to whether or not this will actually go before cameras, but I have a feeling that we have a pretty good shot of it. So, and the last movie news today, this is more of a rumor than anything. It's what I like to call the regular Star Wars rumor of the week. As most of you know, J.J. Abrams is going to be directing the new and upcoming Star Wars Episode 7, which will be released in December 2015. So, one thing that's really great about this movie that we know for sure is that they're building a lot of practical sets, which means it's not going to be the green screen extravaganza that the last two Star Wars prequels were, where everything is created in the computer except for the people standing there. And even at that point, half the people standing there were created in the computer. So we know that they're creating a lot of these sets in real, like they're actually building them. One, I don't know if this would be classified as actual fact or if it was more a rumor, but somebody did come out and say several months ago, I think about 5-6 months ago, that they saw a full-size model of the Millennium Falcon being constructed at Pinewood Studios in London, which is where they're going to be shooting the movie. Now, a lot of people have speculated that the Millennium Falcon is going to be in it, which is actually what's leading me to the rumor right now, mainly because the original trio looks to be the main focus of the movie. So we have Luke, Han, and Leia. And the main rumor comes out from Carrie Fisher. Now, Carrie Fisher's been very vocal about this series so far, and especially the remake, saying that, oh yeah, we're in it. We're going to be doing this, and this. Yeah, Harrison's back, Mark's back, you know, but nothing from the actual studio. Carrie Fisher's been kind of going off on a tangent on this. And her recent one, she stated to a colleague of hers that she was going to be in London for 6 months filming the new Star Wars sequel, which, if that is true, then that means that all the rumors that went around with the getting rid of Michael Arndt, who was at first the writer of the movie, he wrote and won the Academy Award for Toy Story 3. They brought him on to do the first draft of the movie. And then apparently, now this is all rumor. We don't know if this is confirmed or not. We do know the background of everything, that he was removed and that they brought in more writers. But what is stated was that his draft veered too far away from the original trio and focused, I believe, more on their kids. And they were just kind of in there for a little bit, and then they got rid of them. The original three, I mean Luke, Han, and Leia. So what ended up happening was Michael Arndt was pulled off the project, amicably as far as I'm aware, and Lawrence Kasdan was brought in to help rewrite the movie. And Lawrence Kasdan was the writer on Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So having the two most successful Star Wars and the two best Star Wars films out there, the writer from those coming in and actually doing this film is a really good boost to the overall quality of the project. And also, J.J. Abrams is co-writing it, and we all know from all of his projects that he is a very talented writer, very great storyteller. But the main rumor was that the reason he was pulled off was because he focused more so on the kids or other characters than he did on the original trilogy characters. And so what Lawrence Kasdan and J.J. Abrams wanted to have happen was have this movie almost be more of a passing of the torch and have it focus more on Han, Leia, and Luke, and then have Episode 8 and Episode 9 focus on the new generation as the main characters. But this looks like this is more legitimate, because if Carrie Fisher is filming for 6 months, that means that she's not just in it for a cameo or not just in it for a few scenes. She's there for the full shoot from almost beginning to end. And if that's the case, that most likely means that Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford are on board for that length of time too. Anyone who's seen Harrison Ford recently, with the exception of the goatee, he looks like he's trying to get his hairstyle back that Han Solo had. So they haven't come out and officially stated anything about this movie yet, outside of we're doing it, and it's coming out in December 2015. Outside of that, there's been nothing official. Nothing. Not at all. So I'm hoping that we get some information. I'm really excited for this. And when they announced that J.J. Abrams was going to direct it, I was ecstatic. He is look at what he did with Star Trek. He is the perfect director for this. There was a report that came out yesterday that Jon Favreau, who I spoke about on yesterday's show, was actually very interested in directing it. And because he has such a good working relationship with Disney, I guess because he was working on those other projects, they never asked him, but he stated that everyone was coming out and saying, yeah, I'd love to do it. Yeah, I'd love to do it. Yeah, I'd love to do it. And even though he really did, he said that he wouldn't be able to turn it down if it was offered to him. He would have loved to have done it, but he is very happy with the direction that they're going so far. And the fact that J.J. Abrams is directing it with the Star Wars prequels the way that they are, or sorry, the Star Trek movies the way that they are, that it makes a little bit more sense for him to do it as opposed to someone like Jon Favreau, who does have a background in visual effects movies, but not necessarily in the greatest storytelling. I mean, Iron Man was great, but looking at some of the other films he's done, the storytelling aspect hasn't been very good. And with something like Star Wars, to take the taste out of the original prequels, we need to have a great story and someone who knows how to tell that. And I do think that they chose the right choice there with J.J. Abrams, but until we actually see some footage, until we see the movie, we're not going to know 100%. But I'm hoping we get an announcement sometime soon. I'm hoping they don't wait till Comic-Con. That's really far away in terms of when the movie's going to start production, which is supposed to start, I believe, in either April or May. And then Comic-Con's not till July, so we still got a few more months for that. But they need to start filming soon because the movie is going to take at least a year to a year and a half in post-production before it's actually finished. So hopefully we're going to get some more information on this soon. But until we do, this is essentially all rumor and speculation. I'm hoping that they do come out with some information, but if they don't, you know, I mean, there's not a lot that we can really do. We're just film fans. We're just kind of people who read online and really anticipate these movies and fuel the passion for them. But with someone as secretive as J.J. Abrams, who has come out and stated that he's going to be less secretive with this project, although haven't seen any evidence of that yet, it's going to be interesting to see if they do start coming out with some more information. I hope that they do. I hope they start appeasing the fans and really start to delve deep into that. So only time will tell. Well, that'll about do it for us on Movie News. Coming soon, Movie News with Nicholson. I've been your host, and thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to click the subscribe button down at the bottom of the page or right below the video. And also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter. You can find me at Nicholson, Niklsun, to get all your updates on any sort of movie news, and also anything that I tweet about. I will be trying to follow up on the next day with the following show. So don't forget to click subscribe and also follow me on Twitter. You guys have been great. Thanks for watching, and you take care.